Every time you say, "That's just the way I am," your old identity tightens its grip. Hey there, friend. Thanks for hitting play on this video. And I want to share with you a little message today about how we're constantly arguing for our old identity. Most of the time we think we're being self-aware when we say things like, "That's just who I am. I've always been this way." But what we're really doing is defending those limitations. We're arguing for an old version of ourselves that we really have outgrown. And that's a big reason that keeps us stuck. So in this video, I wrote down a few notes here because this has been a big insight for me of arguing for my old self and defending my old self. And you know the old saying that when you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. Because when it comes to identity shifting, you can't become the version of yourself that you want to be when you keep protecting who you've been. So let's back up a little. Identity is not just a story. It's not just a belief. It's really a defense system. It's what we use to justify and validate the story of who I am. And every time you justify a story, every time you validate a pattern, I'm not disciplined. I'm just not a person who works out. I'm not good at this. I'm a slow reader. I'm not good with money. All of these are just stories that you're just further cementing into your mind. You're solidifying that old wiring. So really, people think identity shifting and manifestation is really just like this sexy thing about shifting and raising your vibration, because that's what everything you see here on YouTube is about. But really, identity shifting is not so much about, at least not the first step, is not about becoming someone new. It's about stopping the argument for the old you. Okay, so let's talk about 3 subtle ways we can do this, and really with the purpose of catching ourselves in the act in real time. So first thing is an interesting idea of your language reveals your loyalty. Think about that. The words you speak reveal your loyalty. It reveals where you're placing your energy and what you're interested in. The phrases you use are like passwords to your old identity. Going back to our earlier example, that's just who I am. I've always been this way. It's hard for me to do X, Y, and Z. These aren't really facts. They're permissions you're giving yourself to stay rooted, to stay connected to the way you've always been that's not serving you. So instead of "this is always how I've been," how about if you added "until now"? I've never been good with money until now. It's been hard for me to find motivation and discipline until now. That single phrase, "until now," is powerful. You're making a choice when you say "until now." If you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, he talks about making a choice that you're never the same again. And that's when a person really changes, when they make a choice to no longer be a certain way of the past. So when you say "until now" with conviction, with energy, sincerely, and committed to it, you crack open the door of possibility because you're making a choice with such firm intention. Okay, number 2, another way that we do this, where we argue for our old identity, is that we confuse what is familiar with truth. So your old identity feels safe being the way it is, not because it's right or that it's good for it, but because it's known, because it's in the familiar. You see, we often fail to realize, as evolved as we are as a species, our nervous system is not wired for growth, is not wired to change and evolve. It likes the predictable. It's wired for familiar predictability, the circumstances that we've always known. It keeps us safe. So every time you start shifting, every time you make a choice to change, your body will pull you back, will pull you away from the unfamiliar into the familiar. And the body is really just this subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind wants to keep you there because it thinks it's doing you a favor to keep you safe. And then what we typically do is we get pulled back, and we see that as a sign that we're not ready, we can't do it, this is not who we are, all the old stories come in. But what that actually is just resistance. Here's what I invite you to anchor in. You can't rewire your life. You can't change, make meaningful change in your life without stepping into the unfamiliar. That's kind of the way it is. You have to be willing to go into unfamiliar experiences. And that discomfort you feel is part of the deal. You're in the doorway between who you've been and where you want to go. So the question becomes, when you feel that resistance and you're in that doorway, can you step through? And lastly, number 3, another way we argue for our old identity is that we don't interrupt these old patterns in real time. So awareness is great. Mindfulness is great. That's a great quality, but awareness without action is not really doing anything for us. It's not enough if we don't intervene, if we don't self-correct in the moment. So try this the next time you feel the old negative stories coming in, the ones that are saying, you're not good at this is not who you are, that old voice is narrating. When you notice it, take a breath and ask, who's talking right now? Is it my current identity or the future self I know I'm capable of becoming? What I like to do sometimes is say, there I go again. There goes the old wiring, trying to keep me safe, the old subconscious patterns. There it is again. Keep it lighthearted as you catch yourself and just create some distance that this is just a program running in you and not something you need to beat yourself up about. And when you notice and you pause and you make that correction, then you can make a choice. Back to choice again. Choice is the precursor to your identity. And in that choice, you can decide, am I going to be where I've always been? Or will I lead in a new way? Will I take a new step forward? Will I choose not to let this voice sabotage me and hold me back from my goals? So really, like I said before, people think identity shifting and manifestation is really just this sexy, glamorous thing, but it really works with the noticing and the self-correction. It's kind of just that repetitive cycle of noticing every day when you go unconscious and revert back to the old self, or when you find yourself defending your old ways or arguing for your old ways, noticing when you do that, interfering and self-correcting. That's like what Ram Dass says, it's the chop wood and carrying water of identity shifting. I hope that can really give you something to think about as you're on your path here, because we often beat ourselves up that we need to change so bad. And while we do need to break habits from the past, you don't need to keep fighting for your old self. The first step is really just stop arguing for that old self. Stop defending it. So I gently invite you this week, notice every time you describe yourself in those fixed terms. I'm not good at this. This is the way I've always been. I'm not like that. And gently interrupt it, notice it, and every time you do, you loosen the grip to that old identity. Hope this helps you on your path. And if this resonated with you, this idea of catching and interrupting the old self and noticing when the old self arises is one of the steps in my 7-step identity shifting process in my ultimate free guide that I've created. I've dropped a link below this video where you can get it. And if you want to go even deeper into identity shifting, right now, I'm having a sale on my identity shifting morning practice course. It's a 10-day meditation course that helps you step into the person you know deep down that you're destined to be with a simple embodiment practice. Hope to see you there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Much love.